Thousands marched at Stellenbosch University yesterday demanding transformation at the institution. Meanwhile, a portfolio committee sat in Parliament discussing racism at the University of Stellenbosch. It was all sparked by the film Luister. It was made by the gentlemen joining me in studio today, Dan, Marcus, Eric and Declan. Thank you both, or thank you all so much for joining me today.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, I want to start off with an obvious, if not slightly offensive question, and that's the story is really about transformation at a white university previously, and one certainly where black people, especially the people in this video, in this film, don't feel represented or included. But the film is made by 4 young white men who many would say, and I wouldn't dispute it even to be controversial, are probably the most privileged people in this country. Dan, why don't you kick us off by explaining why, as a young white man, this was a project you wanted to take on?
So this is the most difficult question about making this film, and that was long before anybody would have been able to ask us about it, because this was the first thing that we asked ourselves, is would it be appropriate for us to make this film? We certainly wanted to, because we all feel incredibly invested in transformation and feel that South African society remains incredibly prejudiced and undivided and unequal, and we wanted to be able to contribute in any way that we thought that we could to the undoing of that. Because it's true what you say, like if we understand life like a video game, being a white male in South Africa is the easiest difficulty level possible, and it becomes much harder than that because of natural prejudices that people hold, whatever other identity that you then have, whether it be women or whether somebody of color or somebody who is not heterosexual. But it is a very difficult question, and we had to ask ourselves a number of questions, because it is true that it compromises the film to a certain extent that we are white, and that these essentially are black people having to use our white resources and have to also speak to us in interviews as white people about the great extent to which they suffer not being white, largely the hands of white people. So we asked ourselves a number of questions. Firstly, what good could we create in this film? We thought that creating a film like this could create the sort of attention that could cause a focus on Stellenbosch in a wider society, given the fact that these exact stories that the members and the people interviewed in the film were telling had been told by them for months and had been roundhouse ignored and silenced through that being ignored. And we felt that if we could create a film that would cause many more people to be able to watch it, maybe we could help in the creation of the sort of attention that would force a greater introspection in Stellenbosch and considerations that could ultimately manifest in change. So we thought, cool, we can probably make a film like that. The second question is, could anybody else do it? Was anybody else available? Were there potentially people of color? Could the members of Open Stellenbosch who we interviewed have done it themselves? And we looked at the situation, and we also discussed it with Open Stellenbosch, and it was clear that no one else was available to make this film, no one else had showed interest in making this film, no one else was considered to make this film. We then ourselves did approach a number of other young filmmakers who are not black and who are not males, all of whom were unavailable, and at that point we had a very difficult decision, because we decided to make this film on the day that the university announced that they intended to push disciplinary proceedings against members of Open Stellenbosch who had been part of a protest march at a careers fair at Stellenbosch University that day. And the members of Open Stellenbosch were incredibly fearful, because they understand the thing that is true about university disciplinary proceedings, that as soon as you are wrapped up in that, you become sucked in by it. The university can mandate you not to talk to the media, at the end of which they can probably expel you or suspend you, or at least say that if you conduct any more protests that we do not enjoy, we will punish you. And that is naturally silencing. So they were terrified that they were standing on the precipice of being destroyed as an organization and prevented from continuing to be able to do the good work that they felt had to be done. So they felt that they needed to create this film before they got shut down in that way, and because no one else was available, they were incredibly happy to collaborate with us, because that was ultimately the only option to create an incredibly good quality film to get that story out there. So yes, it is compromising, and if you notice in the film, we remove ourselves completely. We do not feature in the film. Contraband, which is the media company that we're a part of that created this, did not try to take credit for this film. We did not try to push ourselves into the spotlights as the makers of this film. It's very clear that this is a collaboration between us and Open Stellenbosch, the organization. I think the only time that it's clear that any of us is in this film is 2 dubbed subtitles of my own voice when I'm interviewing them in the film. So it is very, very, very clear that we tried to, as much as possible, remove ourselves and reflect the narrative and story that was told to us in the interviews. And we would rather have not had to have been the only ones to have made this film, given our compromised identities. But ultimately, the decision was, do we make a film that could do incredible good, given the time period where they might be shut down, or do we just stay silent and hope for the best and have no positive change that was wrought?